Geek here, welcome back to a brand new video. So let's talk about missing Doctor Who episodes. So back in the 1960s, pretty much then, TV was sort of just meant to be aired once and that was it, you know. It wasn't really designed, you know, stuff like VHSs weren't around back then, reruns weren't really a thing either, you know. It was meant to be watched once and that was it, so to make room for new programmes, they had to just get rid of the old programmes. And that includes Doctor Who, unfortunately. So a lot of William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton stories are no longer with us. However, we can watch them in different ways. So back in the 60s, some very lovely people decided to record the audio of all the stories. Little did they know how much us Doctor Who fans owe them. There are also telesnap reconstructions, which are sort of like stills from the episodes, you know, put together in like a slideshow to sort of visualise it a bit. And then more recently, in the 21st century, we've been getting animations, full-on animated reconstructions of the episodes, you know, with the audio. And very recently, they've been pumping a lot of money into them. So back in 2016, we got The Power of the Daleks. This is the newer version, but yeah, Power of the Daleks in 2016. Then 2019, we got The Macra Terror. And then 2020, we've got The Faceless Ones and Fury from the Deep. I did reviews of both of these stories, so go check them out. I'll leave a card or something. So my question is, what's next? Now, most likely they're going to try and animate every episode, but there's some that, you know, you want more than others. Like, episodes like The Space Pirates and The Smugglers, like, I don't really care about. But there are those that I do care about. And today, these are the 5 missing episodes that I want animated the most. We'll go with that.
Number 1. Galaxy Fall. So the first story I'm going to talk about is Galaxy Fall. This is the opener to Season 3 of Classic Who with the first Doctor, Vicky and Steven. And it's not really a notable story. It's not one that's often talked about or remembered. It doesn't really have an iconic monster which people recognise. But from what exists of the story, because part 3 of the story does exist from this 4-part story, it seems like a really fun sort of pulp sci-fi 60s adventure. It's the reason I like stories like The Space Museum or Keys of Marinus. It's that 60s sci-fi. It's just really quirky and cool. I love it. From what I know of the story, it's sort of like a don't judge a book by its cover, with the beautiful Dravins being the villains and the disgusting Reals being the good guys who want to help. And it's sort of this ticking bomb, this planet they're on is going to explode in a few days. And it seems like a pretty cool sort of sci-fi 60s story. It's really quirky. I also think it'd be quite an easy one to do because it's only a 4-parter, very small cast and sets. So I think to get more Hartnell stuff, because there's only been a couple of Hartnell stories animated, so I'd love to see more Hartnell, and this would be a good one to sort of test the waters. It's easy to do, and I'd like this one to be done. Number 2, The Daleks Master Plan. So yeah, next we've got The Daleks Master Plan, the 12-part epic with the Daleks across time and space, the longest Doctor Who story in the show's history, and it's an acclaimed story. This is another Hartnell story with the Daleks as well, and it's basically them trying to destroy time. You know, they with the help of Mavic Chen, who's a guardian, who's the guardian of the solar system. That's what he's called in the story. They try and conquer time with the Time Destructor. Now, this is a really notable story and a very dark story because it's the first time in Doctor Who we get a companion die. In fact, 2 companions die, Katarina and Sarah. They both get killed off. It's also the first time Doctor Who did a Christmas special. Partway through the story, one of the episodes happened to be on Christmas, so they did just a random Christmas special, The Feast of Stephen, where the Doctor broke the 4th wall, wishing the audience Happy Christmas. That was really cool. And the Daleks are really menacing. From what we see, you know, some of the episodes survive and, you know, they're burning down the jungle with flamethrowers. They're threatening people. They're killing people loads. It's just a really dark, bleak story. And very grand. You know, you've got the space station. You've got the jungles of Kemble. You've got the ancient Egypt stuff. It's a very big story. And for the 60s, that wasn't too common, so it was awesome to see. This is one I'd love to see, and hopefully the length doesn't put me off. It don't. The War Games, that's a 10-parter. I loved that, so hopefully this is the same. Number 3, The Celestial Toymaker. So yeah, next we've got The Celestial Toymaker, another Hartnell story on the list, and this story, from what we know of it kind of reminds me of The Mind Warp. It's very sort of I don't want to say childish, but it leans more in sort of the fantasy route. The Celestial Toymaker himself, he's an eternal, he's a godlike figure, and he's got all these childish games and toys, and if you fail, you become one of his playthings, and it's quite a dark but light-hearted story. But yeah, from what we see of it, part 4 exists of this 4-part story, and it's a really cool, creative story with a brilliant villain with this Toymaker, played greatly by Michael Gough, who was also in the Tim Burton Batman movies as Alfred, Bruce Wayne's butler. Yeah, he's a great actor, and a great performance as this godlike figure. And I do like, characters like that, like, the Black and White Guardians, or the Time Lords, or Zellin from Series 12. I love these godlike characters. I don't know, I find them really interesting. And I feel like this would be a really fun story to do, very creative, with all the games and the puzzles. I don't know, I just really enjoy it. Number 4, Evil of the Daleks. So yeah, now we have Evil of the Daleks, our first Patrick Troughton story on the list, and out of all the ones I've mentioned, this is the one I want the most. It's a Dalek story, once again, so, obviously selling point. It's a 7-parter, and only part 2 exists, and watching that, it's a terrific story with the Daleks. They're very scheming, they want to learn what the human factor is, because they keep getting defeated, so they're going to try and incorporate that. But then all hell breaks loose, and there's a Dalek civil war on Skaro. A bit like Dalek's Master Plan, it's a very sort of grand story. You start off in present day Earth, then like 1960s, then you go to the Victorian era with this Victorian house, and then at the end of the story you end up on Skaro, and it's the first time we meet the Dalek Emperor, who's this big Dalek, and he looks brilliant. Before parting the ways, this is the Emperor Dalek, and he's a fantastic design. And originally this was meant to be the Daleks' final end, their final story, but obviously that didn't come to pass. They came back in the Pertwee era, and the rest is history. It's also the first story with Victoria as a companion, and I do like Victoria as a companion, so yeah, that's another good thing about the story. But yeah, this story's just got everything, Troughton, a brilliant Doctor, Daleks, really well done in the story, grand scale, interesting plot, cool characters and stuff, and out of all the missing stories, this is the one that I would love to see the most animated. Number 5, The Wheel in Space. See, the final story is The Wheel in Space, another Patrick Troughton story from Season 5, and this is a Cyberman story. Now, as you know, the Cybermen are my favourite villain in Who history, and this is the only Cyberman story which isn't widely available. I mean, on BritBox they have a Telesnap reconstruction, which is just a slideshow thing, but I would love to see it animated, just to have every Cyberman story properly available to watch properly. It's also the introduction to the companion Zoe, who is a great companion. She's very intelligent, from the future. And it's really cool how she's introduced. Now, I'm not going to act like it's the greatest story ever. Parts 3 and 6 survive, and it's just okay. But just because it's the Cybermen, Zoe's first story, and, because of that, I would love to see it in full, just to see what it's like. So yeah, that's what I'd like to see from the missing episode animations. Now, what do you think of the animations? I think they're great. What would you like to see most? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And it's Clack of the Geek, signing out. Goodbye, everyone.